The shoebox was unremarkable, worn at the corners, its lid slightly warped from years of pressure. Thomas found it on a Tuesday afternoon while clearing out his father's attic, 3 weeks after the funeral. It sat wedged between a stack of old tax returns and a collection of National Geographic magazines his father had never quite gotten around to reading. He almost didn't open it. But something about the weight of it, the way it shifted when he picked it up, made him pause on the attic stairs. Thomas sat down on the dusty step, balancing the box on his knees, and lifted the lid. Letters. Dozens of them. Maybe 100. Each envelope was addressed in his father's careful handwriting, to Thomas. Nothing more. No postage stamps, no return address. Just those 2 words, written and rewritten in slight variations as the handwriting aged and trembled over the years. Thomas picked up the envelope on top. The paper was newer, crisper than the yellowed ones beneath. His hands shook as he opened it. Dear Thomas, I saw a cardinal in the backyard today. Your mother always said cardinals were messages from heaven. I don't know if I believe that, but I wanted to believe it was her, telling me she forgives me for all the things I did wrong. Telling me she forgives me for letting you slip away. I've been thinking about the last thing you said to me. 5 years ago now. I can't do this anymore, Dad. And you walked out. I stood in that doorway and watched your car disappear down the street, and I couldn't move. I just stood there like an idiot, with all the words stuck in my throat. I should have run after you. I should have said I was sorry. I should have said a lot of things. There's so much I want to tell you. About how proud I am, even though I never knew how to show it. About how every time I messed up as a father, it wasn't because I didn't love you, it was because I loved you so much it terrified me. My own father never told me he loved me, not once, and I swore I'd be different. But I ended up being exactly the same, didn't I? I'm writing this letter I'll never send, because it's easier than picking up the phone. Because I'm a coward. Because I'm afraid you'll hang up, or worse, that you'll listen and still not forgive me. The cardinal flew away. But I'm still here, still hoping. Love. Dad. Thomas's vision blurred. He wiped his eyes roughly with the back of his hand and reached for another envelope. This one was older, the paper more yellowed. The date in the corner read nearly 15 years ago. Dear Thomas, you graduated from college today. I know because your aunt mentioned it last week when she called. She thought I knew. She thought you would have told me. I wanted to be there. I wanted to stand in that crowd and cheer when they called your name. I wanted to take you out to dinner and tell you how amazing you are. How you did what I never could. How you made something of yourself despite having a father who couldn't figure out how to be what you needed. Do you remember when you were 8 and you built that model airplane? You worked on it for weeks. Every night at the kitchen table, so careful with each tiny piece. I was watching TV in the living room, and you kept trying to show me your progress. Dad, look, you'd say. Dad, I finished the wings. And I'd grunt and nod without looking up from whatever stupid show I was watching. I can't even remember what it was now. Some sitcom. Some forgettable nothing. But I remember your face when you finally gave up trying to get my attention. The airplane turned out perfect. You did that all by yourself. You've always been like that, capable, determined, not needing anyone. Especially not needing me. I wonder if that's my fault too. If I taught you not to need me by never being there when you did. Congratulations, son. I hope someone told you that today. I hope someone made you feel as proud as you should feel. Love. Dad. Thomas's chest ached. He remembered that graduation day. He'd looked for his father in the crowd, even though he'd told himself he wouldn't. Even though they hadn't spoken in months after another argument he could barely remember now. He'd scanned the faces anyway, hoping against hope, and felt that familiar hollow disappointment when he didn't find him. His father had cared. His father had wanted to be there. Why couldn't they have just picked up the phone? He opened another letter. And another. The pile of red envelopes grew beside him as the afternoon light shifted through the attic window. Each letter was a window into his father's heart, a heart Thomas had convinced himself was closed off, cold, incapable of the warmth he desperately needed as a child. But here was the warmth. Here was everything he'd wanted to hear. Just too late. Dear Thomas, I drove past your old high school today. They've repainted it. It's blue now instead of that ugly beige. but the football field looks the same. I thought about that game, the championship game junior year. You were quarterback. Do you remember? Of course you do. You played your heart out that night. I was there. I know you didn't see me. I stood way up at the top of the bleachers where you wouldn't look. I told myself I was giving you space, but really I was just being a coward again. I was afraid if you saw me, it would throw you off your game. Afraid my presence would ruin something good for you, the way I always seemed to. You threw the winning touchdown in the last 30 seconds. The crowd went crazy. Your teammates lifted you up on their shoulders. And I stood there crying like a baby, so proud I thought my chest would burst. After, I saw you looking through the crowd. Looking for me, maybe? Or maybe I imagined that because I wanted it to be true. Your mother had died the year before, and I knew you needed someone there. But I'd been so lost in my own grief, I couldn't be what you needed. I got in my car and drove home before you could see me. I told myself it was better that way. Was it better, Thomas? Or was I just running away from another chance to be your father? Love. Dad. Thomas did remember that game. He remembered scanning the crowd for his father, seeing his teammates' parents and siblings and friends, and feeling utterly alone despite being surrounded by people cheering his name. He'd gone home that night with his trophy and eaten cereal alone in their silent kitchen while his father worked late at the office. Or had he been working late? Or had he been sitting in his car in the parking lot, unable to face his son because grief had stolen his voice? The letters chronicled years of distance, years of parallel loneliness. His father writing every milestone, every regret, every moment of pride and pain. Thomas imagined him sitting at the kitchen table late at night, pen moving across paper, pouring out everything he couldn't say out loud. And then Thomas remembered. His heart stopped. No, it couldn't be. He stood up so fast the shoebox tumbled from his lap, letters scattering across the attic floor like fallen leaves. Thomas took the stairs 2 at a time, his father's house suddenly feeling too small, too close. He burst out the front door and got in his car, driving on autopilot through familiar streets until he reached his own apartment across town. He went straight to his bedroom closet. On the top shelf, behind old sweaters and a broken tennis racket, was a cardboard box. His hands trembled as he pulled it down. Inside were letters. Dozens of them. Maybe 100. Each envelope addressed in his own handwriting, to Dad. Never sent. Thomas sank to the floor, the box in his lap, and pulled out a letter at random. His vision swam as he recognized his own words from 6 years ago. Dear Dad, I got promoted today. They made me senior architect. It's what I've been working toward for 5 years. The first thing I wanted to do was call you. Isn't that stupid? After everything, after all the fights and the silence and the years of disappointment, you're still the first person I want to tell when something good happens. But I won't call. I can't. Because we don't know how to talk to each other without it turning into a fight. Because I'm afraid you won't care, or you'll find some way to make it about how I should have done something different. So I'm writing this letter I'll never send. I'm telling you anyway, even though you'll never know. I'm successful, Dad. I'm doing well. I have a good life. And I'm still so angry at you for not being part of it. For not knowing how to be proud of me in a way I could actually feel. But I also miss you. Every damn day I miss you. I don't know how to fix this. I don't think either of us does. Your son, Thomas. He opened another letter, and another. The box was heavy with words unsaid, with love unexpressed, with the weight of all the phone calls he'd almost made and all the visits he'd almost planned. Here was the letter he'd written the day he got engaged. Here was the one from the night his fiancée left him, when he desperately wanted his father's advice, but was too proud to ask. Here was the letter from his 30th birthday, his 35th, his 40th. All the milestones his father had written about, Thomas had written about them too. To his father. Never sent. They'd been saying the same things to each other for 15 years. I'm sorry. I miss you. I love you. I don't know how to fix this. I wish things were different. All of it locked in boxes, hidden away, gathering dust while the years slipped past and the distance between them grew wider and wider until it became an ocean neither could cross. Thomas pulled out his phone. His thumb hovered over his father's contact, still saved, never deleted, as if he'd always known he'd call someday. As if someday wasn't already too late. He stared at the name for a long moment. Then he set the phone down and picked up another letter from his box. This one was dated just 8 months ago. Dear Dad, I dreamed about you last night. We were in the old house, the one on Maple Street where I grew up. You were teaching me how to tie a tie for the first time. Do you remember that? I was 14, getting ready for homecoming. I kept messing it up and you were so patient. You showed me again and again, your big hands guiding mine until I finally got it right. And when I did, you smiled at me. Really smiled with your whole face. And you said, "That's my boy." I woke up crying. Because I realized I can't remember the last time you smiled at me like that in real life. Can't remember the last time you called me my boy or anything other than just Thomas in that careful, distant way we've learned to talk to each other. When did we become strangers, Dad? Was it after Mom died? Or was it before that and I just didn't notice because she was always there to bridge the gap between us? I keep thinking I should just show up at your door. Just drive over there and ring the doorbell and refuse to leave until we talk. Really talk. About everything. About nothing. About how we got here and how to get back. But what if you don't want me there? What if you open the door and I see that look on your face, that careful, closed-off look that says I'm an obligation, not a joy? I couldn't handle that. So I'll write this instead and put it with all the others. My coward's way out. I love you, Dad. I don't think I've said that out loud in 20 years. But I do. I always have. Thomas. The sun had set. Thomas sat in the darkness of his bedroom, surrounded by 2 collections of letters that told the same story from different angles. A tragedy of communication, of pride, of fear. His father had been afraid Thomas wouldn't forgive him. Thomas had been afraid his father didn't care. Both of them wrong. Both of them writing letters into the void, never knowing the void was writing back. Thomas thought about the last time he'd seen his father. 5 years ago, another argument he could barely remember now. Something about Thanksgiving plans, or maybe it was Christmas. Some stupid, insignificant thing that had escalated because they were experts at escalation, masters at finding the exact words that would hurt the most. I can't do this anymore, Dad, he'd said. And he'd left. He remembered now his father had followed him to the door. Had stood there with his hand raised as if to reach for Thomas's shoulder. But he hadn't. The hand had fallen. And Thomas had driven away without looking back. If he had looked back, what would he have seen? His father, standing in the doorway, watching him disappear. Just like his father had written in that letter. Thomas picked up the most recent letter from his father's box again. Read it through blurred vision. I'm still here, still hoping. But he wasn't. Not anymore. The funeral had been small. Thomas had stood at the graveside with a handful of his father's coworkers and old neighbors, all of them mumbling condolences that felt hollow because they didn't understand. They thought it was simple grief, a son losing his father. They didn't know about the ocean between them. They didn't know about the 15 years of silence that made the loss 1,000 times worse because it was permanent now. There would be no reconciliation. No scene where they finally broke down and forgave each other and started over. The story was finished, and it had a terrible ending. Thomas had spent the funeral service thinking about all the things he should have said, composing them in his head. The perfect apology. The perfect explanation. All the ways he should have been braver, should have reached out, should have broken the silence. He hadn't known his father was doing the same thing. For years. In letter after letter that Thomas would never have seen if not for that shoebox in the attic. Now, sitting in his dark bedroom with evidence of their parallel longing spread around him, Thomas understood the true tragedy. They'd both been reaching out. They'd both been saying, I love you, I'm sorry, please come back. They just hadn't been brave enough to let those words travel the short distance between them. Thomas stayed up all night reading through both collections. His father's box and his own. Watching the handwriting change over the years, his father's growing shakier, his own growing more certain and then tired. Seeing their thoughts converge and converge again, like 2 melodies trying to find harmony but never quite making it. As dawn broke through his bedroom window, Thomas came to the last letter in his father's box. The most recent one. Written just 2 weeks before his father died. Dear Thomas, I'm not feeling well. The doctor says it's probably nothing, but I'm old enough to know that probably nothing sometimes turns into something. I've been thinking about these letters. This whole stupid box of things I was too scared to say out loud. What a waste. What an absolute waste of time we could have spent together. If I don't make it, and I have a feeling I won't, I hope someone finds these. I hope they give them to you. Not because I want you to feel guilty. God, please don't feel guilty. But because I want you to know the truth. The truth is, I loved you every single day. Every single moment. Even when we weren't speaking. Even when I was too stubborn and proud to pick up the phone. Especially then. The truth is, you were never a disappointment. You were never too much or not enough or anything other than exactly what I wanted in a son. Every mistake I made as a father was just that, my mistake. Not your fault. Never your fault. The truth is, if I could go back and do it all again, I'd do it so differently. I'd hug you more. I'd say, I'm proud of you until you got sick of hearing it. I'd show up to every game, every event, every ordinary Tuesday night dinner. I'd be present instead of distant. I'd be brave enough to let you see how much I loved you. But I can't go back. None of us can. All I can do is write this letter and hope that somehow, even if I'm gone, these words find their way to you. I forgive you for leaving, Thomas. But more importantly, please forgive me for giving you reasons to go. I love you. I'm proud of you. You were the best thing I ever did in this life. Your father. Thomas read the letter 3 times. Then he carefully folded it and placed it back in its envelope. He gathered up all the letters, his father's and his own, and placed them together in his father's shoebox. A complete story, finally. 2 sides of the same sad, beautiful, tragic love story. He drove back to his father's house as the sun climbed higher. Let himself in with the key he'd kept all these years. Walked through rooms that still smelled faintly of his father's coffee, his aftershave, the specific scent of old books and loneliness. In the living room, on the mantel, was a photo of Thomas at age 8. The one taken the day he finished that model airplane. In the picture, he was holding it up proudly, grinning so wide his eyes crinkled shut. Thomas didn't remember this photo being taken. He picked it up and looked closer. Saw, in the reflection of the glass, a blurred figure in the background. His father, camera in hand, capturing the moment he'd thought he'd missed. He'd been there. He'd been paying attention. Thomas set the photo down gently and walked to the kitchen. Sat at the table where his father must have sat, writing letter after letter into the silence. He pulled out a piece of paper from his pocket, the last blank envelope from his own box. He'd brought it with him without really knowing why. Now he knew. Dear Dad. I found them. All of them. Every word you wanted to say but couldn't. I want you to know I had a box too. Same number of letters, probably. Same thoughts. Same regrets. Same love that didn't know how to get from my heart to my mouth. We were both so stupid, weren't we? Both so scared. Both waiting for the other one to be brave first. I forgive you. For everything. For all the moments you think you missed and all the words you think you failed to say. I forgive you because I understand now. I understand that loving someone and knowing how to show them are 2 different things. And you loved me. God, Dad, you loved me so much. I'm sorry I left. I'm sorry I didn't come back. I'm sorry I let pride and hurt and stubbornness steal 15 years we could have spent together. I read your last letter. The one where you said I was the best thing you ever did. I want you to know being your son was the best thing I ever got. Even with all the mess and pain and distance. Even with everything we got wrong. You were a good father, Dad. Not a perfect one. But good. Better than you thought. Better than you gave yourself credit for. I love you. I'm proud to be your son. And I hope, wherever you are, you finally believe that. Thomas. He folded the letter and placed it in the shoebox with all the others. Then he carried the box upstairs to the attic and set it back where he'd found it, between the tax returns and the unread magazines. Some stories didn't get happy endings. Some words came too late. Some conversations happened only in letters that no one would ever read. But the love was real. Even if it was buried in a shoebox. even if it was hidden away in silence and regret and all the things that could have been but weren't. The love was real. And maybe, Thomas thought as he closed the attic door behind him, maybe that was enough. Not everything he'd wanted. Not everything either of them had deserved. But enough. He drove home in the morning light, the shoebox still in his father's attic, their story contained and complete. Two men who loved each other imperfectly, documented in letters neither was brave enough to send. But written anyway. Always written. Words that existed, even if they'd never traveled the short distance from one heart to another. And in the writing, in the act of putting pen to paper, year after year, saying, "I love you," even into the void, maybe there had been a kind of courage after all. A kind of bridge, built in secret. A kind of conversation, carried on in the loneliest way possible. But carried on nonetheless. Thomas would keep writing. He decided that in the car ride home, watching the sun illuminate streets his father once drove down, thinking about this man he'd loved and lost and somehow found again through those letters. He'd keep writing to his father. Keep telling him about his days, his successes, his failures, his ordinary moments. Keep the conversation going even though one half of it was silence. Because that's what you did when you loved someone. Even when they were gone. Even when it was too late for them to write back. You kept saying the words anyway. You kept building the bridge, even if it led nowhere. You loved them, and you told them so over and over into the forever of their absence. And maybe, in some way he couldn't quite name or understand, they heard you anyway. Maybe they'd been hearing you all along.